Yo, what's up everybody? Quinn here. Finally getting to the 360 dive roll tutorial. I know it's been like a while of me saying like, oh, I'm gonna do it and then not really doing it. It's mainly just because I thought I wasn't really the right person to be giving this tutorial. I think there's other people that could probably explain it better, but I don't really see anybody giving out like detailed 360 dive roll tutorials. So here we go. So I want to talk about some requirements you're going to need for this tutorial. This will be a gym tutorial. This won't be an outside tutorial. I didn't learn this outside, so I don't really know how to go about like teaching it outside. I've thought about different ways that you can drill it outside to kind of get yourself more comfortable with doing it if you don't have a gym, but in all honesty, that's still something I gotta play with myself. So if you want that, let me know down in the comments, like it, message me, tell me somehow you want me to do an outside one, and I'll figure it out and I'll get to filming it and stuff, but you just gotta let me know on that, please. Alright, so there will be some equipment that is required, and then there will also be some prerequisite skills that you're going to want to get underneath your belt first. These skills are not required to learn 360 dive roll, but you are going to want to get them underneath your belt to make learning 360 dive roll a little more simpler for you. 360 dive roll is a really technical skill. Like, all the movements in it are specific to making the whole skill work. So if you don't understand the individual parts of it, it will be really hard to learn this skill and you might struggle, but understand it's not required, but these prerequisites are super simple, so you should probably already be able to do these if you're looking at 360 dive roll. Or not, and be like me and try to learn things when you weren't ready, because that's how I learned all my skills. I didn't have the prerequisites for 360 dive roll before. I just saw Daniel, my one friend, doing it a lot, and I was like, hey man, teach me that. And it took me about 1.5 years because I didn't have these prerequisites super like locked down and stuff. So you are gonna want to do these things, I promise you. Just do them, okay? Promise you'll love yourself for doing it. Alright, the first thing I want to go over is just the required equipment that you're going to need for this tutorial. You may not have all of these things, so you might have to jimmy rig a couple things together to kind of make your own setup going on. That's just what I had to do. I luckily did end up having a resi mat for this tutorial, so if you don't have a resi mat, there are other ways to create the right equipment, but essentially the first thing you are going to need to start this tutorial is a mat or landing surface that is right about your waist level, maybe even hip, but no lower than your hip. We want it to be pretty high because we want you having to jump up onto it rather than going forward onto it. You'll see what I mean later on, but yeah, you just want to make sure it's pretty high so you can actually jump up onto it. Alright, so a few other things that you're going to need for this tutorial are going to be a couple of 8-incher mats or crash mats, preferably ones that are pretty long and they're probably around this thick. You're going to want a couple of these so that you can like stack them on top of each other, and then as you get more comfortable with the skill, you can take them away until basically you're on the ground. That's when the next thing comes up you're going to need is you're going to end up now needing a sting mat or like a bar mat, and they're usually around like this thin. You'll probably have to play with the stuff that you have at your gym because not every gym has the same stuff, but essentially you want a mat that's pretty thin, you know, something that's not really lifted up off the ground too much. So this is more when you're ready to actually go for the ground, okay? So this is going to be needed later on, but will be required. Alright, so now that we have all the equipment that we're going to need, let's talk about the prerequisite skills that you're going to need under your belt to start learning this skill. Understand, like I said earlier, these are not required, just highly recommended by me and other people, just because these skills help you figure it out faster and understand it much more. So let's get these skills on. Okay, so obviously the first prerequisite for this is going to be a forward roll. Now the reason we need a forward roll is because that's what a 360 dive roll is essentially, is an overly exaggerated forward roll with a couple extra movements is all it is. So understanding how to do a forward roll and comfortably do it over the top of your head without using your head is clearly going to be the first step to being able to do this. If you can't do this, I highly recommend going out and figuring out how to do this. Alright, the next skill we're going to be able to need to understand is being able to turn our forward roll into a dive roll. Now, a dive roll essentially is just jumping into your forward roll. I'm not going to give a full tutorial, but essentially for this one, you need your dive roll to be able to go up pretty high and also travel pretty far out. This diagram right here kind of gives a good idea about starting here, and you want your dive roll in your body to go all the way up and then landing back down here, okay? So now, if you can't get your dive roll to arch up like this, like a dolphin would, essentially, you're gonna struggle really hard because you're gonna end up having a lot of problems with, you know, actually getting the full timing for the twist, because if you go straight across, what's gonna happen is your twist will happen here, but then you have no time to come back down into the ground. So you're really gonna wanna understand how to take a dive roll up really high, otherwise you're gonna land on your noggin a couple times, and that's not gonna be very fun. So the next skill I want you to try to get underneath your belt before learning this skill is going to be a standing 360. Now, if you can't standing 360 without falling over, losing your balance, getting lost visually, or just not being able to land in the same spot as you took off from, stop this video, go outside, do some 360s, get this underneath your belt, get an understanding. It's really simple, feels goofy, but it's simple to get, a good understanding of. Now, the reason I recommend you doing this is directly because if you don't, you're gonna get lost quite a bit within 360 dive roll, and that's a horrible place to be. Getting lost in 360 dive roll means that you're directly probably going to land on your head. We talked about that earlier. We don't want that. So go outside, learn some 360s, come back, and then finish this tutorial. Alright, so this next skill I want you to have underneath your belt is not really a requirement, but I highly recommend it for multiple safety reasons. It's going to be a front flip. Now, I would like you to be able to do this front flip laid out and tucked, fast and slow, low and high, and I want you to be able to bail and land all of these for multiple safety reasons. Simply, inside of a 360 dive roll, it is very, very easy to under rotate or over rotate. That happy medium balance is very hard to find. So if you are comfortable with bailing out of these situations, because front flip, being able to bail out of front flip of these, you will then now be able to stay safer within learning 360 dive rolls. So learn these skills. If you can't, it's okay. But I like to be able to work on a skill as long as I can with staying safe the entire time. If you like this as well, I highly recommend you learning how to do these skills. Alright, so now that you have all your equipment and you can do your prerequisite skills, we can finally get into 360 dive roll tutorial. During this tutorial, I am going to be talking about drills, your arm positioning, your body positioning, jumping into it, tips and tricks, and then at the end, I'm going to be going over some common problems that you will run into during your 360 dive roll progression and your journey to getting into the skill. So be patient, do your best, and let's get into it. Alright, so to start off this, I would like you to go and do 5 or 6 really big dive rolls. Now, these dive rolls, once again, should be archy like a dolphin, and you should be rising as high as you can and traveling as far as you can. I want you being able to spot and comfortably take the impact on each of them, as these are going to be important when you are moving through the steps of the progression. Okay, so now that you've done your dive rolls, go ahead and grab your resi mat and pull it to a soft area, and let's go ahead and get started. Alright, in this first clip, you're going to see me walk up to my resi mat. My resi mat's going to be around my hips, although I do wish it was a little bit taller. It'll do for the tutorial. Now, the first thing you're going to see me do is I'm going to be doing some half twists to my back, trying to keep my body super straight, and keeping my left arm extended up into the sky. Now, I twist to my left, so that's why my left arm is extended, so it's all up to you of which side you want to keep extended up. But my main objective and goal is to be getting comfortable twisting in this horizontal position and spotting through my left armpit so I can see the ground coming around. Another thing that we're going to be learning inside of this drill is our arm motions and arm positions. Now, these are really important, and I like to say that they're the key to a good 360 dive roll, as they are basically what makes the motion happen in general. So getting these down super well and understanding these arm motions are going to help you get to your 360 dive roll a lot quicker. So now, this is not like every skill where you can use both arms the same way. Each arm has a job. Now, my left arm is to create the twisting, and my right arm is to go ahead and help me get height and rotation for my roll. So as you'll see in this video, my right arm basically stays up the entire time and shoots over, while my left arm swoops down and up and over the top to create the twist. Now, being able to make these motions quick, fast, and really comfortable is going to help you make the twist happen so you have more time to get back to your roll. Now, as you get more comfortable with this half twist and spotting through your armpit and your arm motions, you can start progressing it to a 360 to your stomach. Now, the main thing that you're trying to do in the 360 to your stomach is to continue to spot through your armpit to see when the ground is coming. This is going to help you get more comfortable spotting while you're in the air so you can then exit out of the twist into your roll. So practice this a lot. I would honestly do this until you're able to do it every single time consistent, probably about 10 times in a row. Now, once you got this very comfortable, we can start progressing to the next thing, where we're going to continue doing 360s to our stomach onto our mat. But instead of just landing with our arms sprawled out and onto our stomach, we're going to try to catch ourselves with our hands before we hit our stomach. Now, this is to start building up when to bring our hands down to catch for the 360 dive roll, okay? If you can't use your arms to catch, what's going to happen is you're going to flop onto your back, your shoulder, or even your head sometimes, and that's not going to feel good. Being able to catch yourself with your hands and then enter into the roll is going to be the safest way, and also just the easiest way to be able to make sure you can do this skill well and smoothly. Now, once again with this, get super comfortable with it. Do it over and over again. Get consistent. Be able to do it 20, 30 times in a row before we move on to this next step. Now that you have this all super comfortable, the next thing that we're gonna do essentially is just try to catch with our hands and then push over for a forward roll over the top. Now these are not going to turn out very clean, nor will they be very fun in the beginning, but this is what's going to help you start to understand how to catch and roll over the top. And adding being able to do this over the height is going to be absolute key, because if you can do it on height, it probably means that you can start taking to a lower surface. Now that you're super comfortable doing your 360 to your hands and your stomach from your horizontal position and spotting through your armpit and also using your arm motions, we can progress to the next step where we're going to do another 360 to our hands. But instead of landing on our stomach, we're going to land on our knees. And then as soon as we land on our hands and knees, we're going to immediately pop over into the roll. What this is going to allow us to do is start connecting the horizontal 360 into an actual roll. Now, I want you to do this a few times, and once you feel really comfortable landing on your hands and knees and rolling, what I want you to start to do is to over-rotate your roll little bit by little bit by little bit to where you're hitting your hands before your knees. So eventually your body will be like this. You can catch with your hands, and then you can just roll over the top. This sounds a lot easier than it actually is. It will take quite a few times for you to get comfortable to this position, but these are the progressional steps that you'll want to take onto the resi mat. Start getting comfortable with connecting the horizontal 360 into the actual roll. Okay, so by this time, I'm going to make the assumption that you can comfortably and consistently do a horizontal 360 to your hands and knees, catch, and then safely roll over the top. Now, if you can't do the last steps without your knees, that's completely cool, because they're not really required for this next step, because this next step is actually to take away the need for the knees. Okay, so now you have two options of how to do this one. For me, all I had to do was turn my resi mat because it was shorter one way, and I could do my 360 dive roll all the way over the top of it, or you can just try to push your dive roll over the top of the length of whatever block you have going on. It's kind of up to you. You'll kind of see the setup I have in this video, so you can set up yours the similar way. So essentially what we're going to be doing with the setup is we're going to be trying to do our 360 dive roll all the way over top of our block, landing on the far side edge on our stomach and then rolling off of it, as you see in this clip. What this allows us to do is to get a little bit more comfortable with doing the full entire motion without having to just throw it by ourselves, because this mat that's underneath us will catch us and then we can finish off the motion. As you go through with this though, don't continue letting the mat catch you. Try to miss the mat. Try to go over the top of the mat. See if you can roll all the way over without touching the mat. This will be pretty hard. It'll take a few tries, but do this consistently over and over and over and over again until your body can basically do it without the need of the mat. This is when we know we're ready to take it a little bit lower. So now the simplest way for us to progress into a lower area with this essentially is just to grab those 2 to 3 8-incher mats, bring them to the floor, stack them on top of each other until they're about your knee height or maybe just a little bit taller than your knee. What you're going to do is you're going to repeat the last previous drills onto these 8-inchers, and once you get comfortable, you're going to take one away each time you get comfortable until eventually you have one on the floor. Then at that point, we'll know that you're ready to start taking it to the actual floor. And this is where we're going to need that skinny little mat, like a sting mat, bar mat, or anything that's just cushioning to the floor. Now, I fully understand that it is not going to be simple for you to walk up to that skinny mat and be like, I'm throwing 360 dive roll. Commitment just doesn't happen like that. There's still probably a couple more steps that we need to take to get you comfortable with going to the floor. And these are going to be your next couple steps to help you out. So now the main problem you're probably going to run into that keeps you away from committing to this skill is the end of the 360 dive roll, where you actually have to catch yourself and roll over the top. A lot of people are worried that they're going to under-rotate and land on their heads, which is honestly a completely understandable fear. I would hate for that to happen. It's happened to me multiple times, and I hate it every single time. So there's a few things that we can do that will emulate the ending of a 360 dive roll so that you can start having the understanding of how it will be before you commit fully to it on the floor. Now, there are two things I think emulate the ending of a 360 dive roll perfectly and will help you get comfortable with ending a 360 dive roll. These are going to be Arabian dive roll. There are two different versions of it that I would like you to be able to do. First off is going to be a tuck to kick out dive roll, and then there will be a lay out dive roll. The reason that both these are very, very important is because you go through both these stages through a 360 dive roll, and if you finish a 360 dive roll the same way that you would end an Arabian dive roll. So we're starting to reach the end of the tutorial here, and by now you should feel pretty comfortable how a 360 dive roll works and how you yourself can go learn a 360 dive roll inside of a gym with these drills. All it really takes now is for you to go in, put some work on these steps, get comfortable, and commit all the way through. Be patient. This is a technical skill, not a powerful skill, so it will take a while for you to learn. It took me about 1.5 years without any of this information going on. I had to learn all this myself. So, take this, take your time with it. I believe most people can learn 360 dive roll within a month. It's not that hard of a skill. Like I said, it's just technical. Technical skills will always be harder than powerful skills. But that essentially right there is my 360 dive roll tutorial. If you feel like you're getting stuck and lost in any of those areas, go back to the drills and revisit each step. Each step helps out with individual parts of the skill, you know? So don't be afraid to like backtrack a little bit. It's completely okay to do that. If you have any questions about the tutorial or anything like that, just message me. I can always hit you up with some more details. Past that though, let me know what you thought about the tutorial, and if you want an outside one, please message me and I'll start working on it. But it'll probably take about like 50 people to get me to commit to making that, because honestly, learning 360 dive roll outside, it's not an easy thing. I've done a lot of thought about it before, and just in general, it's not something that I find safely doable, I guess. Yeah, so get your hands on a gym if you can. If not, message me. If I get 50 people asking for an outside one, I'll do an outside one. But till then, I'll talk to you later and good luck.